Hey, and welcome to the final episode of another Metroid 2 Remake. Believe it or not, we actually have a very short section of game to go. In comparison. So first of all, we're going to head back to this warp point and send ourselves back down to the tower, as that was where our next juncture lays. Got a screw attack through those blocks. There's something I should have checked out, but I didn't think of it at the time. I'll bring it up when it comes up later in the video. Powerbomb our way through once again. And finally, enter this passageway that we've been dodging for 3-4 episodes now. Obviously, we needed the ice beam to proceed down here. In fact, we need many abilities to proceed down here, so it's easier to just lay a power bomb and see what exactly is ahead of you. Quick refill, even though we didn't really need it. Although if you haven't been diligent about collecting power bomb expansions, it's always nice. Once enemies are frozen, you can take them out with a single missile. So we have this speed booster block down there. Shine spark balling into it reveals one of our last missile tanks. By this point, you can probably figure out what the final counts on our special weaponry will be. You might recognize that elevator shaft. It was the one we took down into the facility where the power bomb was being held. Excuse me. One more expansion to pick up here. Our very last missile expansion, bringing us to our maximum total of 250 missiles. If that's not enough to survive the rest of the game, I don't know what it is. This could be a pretty tricky corridor if you decide to not screw attack through everything. But with the centipedes crawling out of the walls and those things rising out of the lava to peck at you, it can get pretty hairy pretty quick. Down here, even though the lava can't hurt us, there is nothing we can bomb open to proceed. So, from here, our only direction is upward. And indeed, upward is where we receive the enemy scan. So let's go see where this Metroid's hiding. They are nearing extinction at this point. We only have 14 Metroids left. And this one right here, is the last alpha of his kind. He's still going to be as much of a dick as possible on his way out. But it doesn't take much. So, even though that was only the one Metroid, it still activated an earthquake, so we might as well go see what changed. It dropped a block and a bunch of lava down here. And it's revealed another Metroid in the area. A fair bit of railroading if I've ever seen it, but that's alright. We are in the endgame. It is time for us to... It is time for the game to start directing us towards the appropriate threats that we need to counter. And hey, do you hear that? Sounds like someone's fighting for their lives out there. It's that search and rescue team taking on a Zeta Metroid that's no longer a Zeta Metroid. Say hello to the Omega Metroid, the toughest enemy in the game. If all you played was Fusion, don't be fooled by how easy that one was. This guy can rip you to shreds if you are not prepared enough. He's very good at chain ganking you with lunges and claw swipe attacks. He has this very long-reaching flamethrower move. He also has a weak spot on his back. It is possible to hit, but it is very, very difficult. And, he kinda went down like a punk. That doesn't usually happen. So yeah, this was the search and rescue team that went looking for the science team. And did you hear that screech? Somebody is not happy that the most powerful Metroid was destroyed. So yeah, Omega Metroids are usually incredibly strong, incredibly powerful. If they back you into a corner, they will show no mercy. They will slash you to bits, jump on you all over the place. They will breathe fire right in your face. I just happened to get really lucky with that Omega Metroid shot, and in particular, it is really, really difficult to get those shots on an Omega Metroid's back. I don't know if they take a large amount of extra damage there, but they definitely take more than normal damage there if you shoot them in the back. The back is just a very difficult weak point to hit, and it requires quite a bit of practice. So let's restock and continue forward. I may have said that the ice beam freezes upon first contact, and that's clearly wrong, so I apologize. If, like most Metroid games, it freezes on the last hit it would take to kill an enemy. Also, I glazed over it before because there were other things that were worrying at the time, like that deathly screech in the background. But we picked up the final expansion of the game right past the search and rescue team's base. It was one last super missile expansion. We are now fully equipped and have 100% item completion. 3 Metroids detected in the area. No prizes for guessing what type of Metroids they are. First we have a bit of a labyrinth to walk our way through. You can tell we're starting to approach final dungeon territory. I meant to figure out what those speed booster blocks lead to, but I'm not actually sure. This is the nest. It is kind of a gross place. But it is where we'll be facing the final Metroids in the game. Just a long column to ascend. I skipped past the path on the left because that's actually our ultimate destination, so it's just easier to take care of things up here and then go back down. And what stands over here in this room? Our next Omega Metroid. It, of course, helps quite a bit to get the opening shot on them. And their flamethrower attack is actually a bit of a godsend at times because it opens them up quite well. As long as you have enough room. And wow, that really only took 5 super missiles. That was honestly the best fight I have ever had against an Omega Metroid. Don't worry, I'm sure I'll get a chance to show off how dangerous they can really be. Because seriously, they are not to be taken lightly. And if you can't shoot them in the back, which there's nothing wrong with because it is a really difficult spot to hit, but if you can't hit them in the back, the battle can take quite a bit out of you. Omega Metroids will stun Samus if she's on the ground when they make a high leap like that. And look, now he's backed me into a corner. Here he comes with the claw attacks. And I'm down 2 energy tanks. There's no way past him. What a dick. But I did manage to get him in the back. So even though we took a lot of damage, he still left himself open quite well. And I was able to get a couple of very good shots on him. We don't have a lot of super missiles left, but hopefully we won't need that much more. You have to wonder if this is where all of the Metroids on the planet were born. And these are just the adults who decide to remain behind. So yeah, you can see the leaping up into the air will knock Samus flat on her back. And he's got me pretty much cornered. It almost seems like he had some kind of special move there, like he bit down on Samus and then went into the flamethrower move. But it's kind of hard to tell. Fortunately, I managed to pull off a back shot. That is all 4 Omega Metroids. There's your earthquake. And there's that terrifying scream. What it means, I know not. I mean, of course I know. And if you've played the original Metroid 2 and beaten it and finished it to completion, then you know what's coming up as well. Even though that counter may say 0, these are not the final Metroids on the planet. Samus's job is not quite done yet. I still cannot believe I got through those Omega Metroid battles with such ease in comparison. I have never had the Omega Metroid battles go that smoothly. 70% of the time I end up getting chain ganked in the corner and brought down to half health. I have to go back to the safe station to refuel. Thank goodness I didn't this time. That makes for a smoother video. So we're starting to leave the nest and enter a new part of SR388's caverns. We have quite a bit of a run-up with not that much to say about it except one little thing. Each of these waterfalls does have a hole that continues the waterfall in the cavern below. So when you're traversing this place, you want to be careful of those holes and stay above the pools entirely, if at all possible. It's not too difficult with a screw attack and a space jump. So yeah, this is just a run-up through a lot of waterfall caverns, and not that much threat to speak of. In fact, no threat to speak of. So I'm going to take this opportunity to reflect on how far we have come, and how far this game has come in 10 years, I believe? I believe they began production in 2006 and finally released it in 2016, so this was a 10-year labor of love by people who were way too into the Metroid series. So much so that they gave us a better in practically every way version of Metroid 2, the oddball of the series. In a version that is much more comfortable to play, that more people can appreciate. I mean, of course, with the DMCA, it's not exactly legal to distribute it, but it's not difficult to find if you know what you're looking for. So, shoutouts to everyone who worked on the production of this amazing, feeling authentic Metroid fan game. Here we have arrived at the genetics laboratory. There's just one quick thing I want to show off before we head in there proper. There's this warp tube. This warp tube leads all the way back to the hydro station. This warp tube, in fact, did not exist in the original version of the game. It was added in patch 1.1. I told you those patch changes would only come into play at the end of the game. The other things that patch 1.1 did were decrease the damage output and the health of the Omega Metroids, because before they used to be incredibly difficult, even more so than they already are. And up here, we get a bit of a jump scare, and suddenly 9 Metroids on the radar. This is it. This is the final run. These are the last Metroids in the game. And here, they take the form of the larval Metroids we know and love throughout the entire series. They follow the pattern that every other Metroid in the series has followed so far. An Ice Beam, 5 missiles to the nucleus, I guess. Interesting that they're coming finally in this genetics laboratory. It must be a result of space pirating experimentation. As you might expect, the larval Metroids aren't too difficult, as long as you can freeze them before they come straight at you and grab Samus's helmet. And if you manage to freeze them in a place where you can actually hit them with your missiles, being able to get a proper beat on them is important. That initial jump scare with the sudden reveal of the 9 Metroids on the scanner, that was actually That was actually a trick pulled off in the original Metroid game, and for some reason I thought it applied in this game too, but it didn't seem so once I started the new game. It counted every single Metroid in the game from the beginning. But we just have one Metroid left. And this corridor with the ominous music should give you just an idea of who's up ahead. You ready for this, Samus? Let's do it. Say hello to the Metroid Queen. The only Metroid organism naturally capable of producing offspring. This is our final boss of the game. Interesting that she may have gone through a unique life cycle in order to achieve this form. As with all Metroids, the beam is completely useless on her. The only thing that will work on her are missiles. But even then, missiles will not work on her all the time. When her head is glowing like that, missiles will bounce straight off. She begins with this headbutt attack that is relatively easy to lead and dodge. Just as long as you know when she is about to launch it. And these loogies, for lack of a better term, that she's spitting out are, of course, very useful refills. And you can easily get them by standing in the corner, aiming upwards, and then charging up a beam in order to restock on any missiles you need. It's very important if you manage to blow through your missiles in this fight, which can happen even with maximum missiles. She takes a lot of missiles to the face. Obviously with super missiles it would go a lot faster, but we have far fewer of those, and I don't want to blow through those so easily. It can be tricky to catch her when she switches from vulnerable to invulnerable. So her attack pattern so far is pretty simple. So sometimes it's just as simple to just stand there and tank her headbutts to the face. Can't do anything about this attack. This fireball just blows open a hole in the wall, and she chases you to a new place. Here she will only headbutt in two places, up or down. If she decides that she wants to headbutt upwards several times in a row, well, lucky for you, that's a pretty easy spot to just sit there and spam missiles at her face. And indeed, we've already gotten her to her next stage. This fireball you have to duck. Otherwise, it'll smack Samus right in the face. You might notice she's chasing us through the remains of the laboratory that we've already been through. At this point, she gets pretty fast that it's pretty difficult to dodge every single one of her headbutts because she moves so fast and launches it so fast. But that's okay. That's why we have all those health tanks. Does she ever gain an attack beyond hawking these loogies and headbutts? To be honest, I'm not sure she does. The headbutts can be dangerous enough with how fast they get and how little warning you have in order to get out of the way. And sometimes even those loogies can be annoying. Because sometimes her head blocks them, and they just keep floating around and do nothing provide you with nothing. Look at me, I'm down to 86 missiles. Of course, this would be going faster if I was using super missiles. But again, super missiles are a precious commodity, and I don't want to waste them when she suddenly goes invulnerable. Again, sometimes it's easier to just stand there and tank her headbutts to the face as you pile missiles into her mouth. Oh boy, this looks like a dead end. What have we got here? So now she enters this state where she just grabs Samus in her mouth, and you can finish it by plowing a bunch of missiles into her, but this is the proper way to do it. You have to remember that Metroid game. Roll into a ball, powerbomb her from the inside. You could theoretically finish her off with another several missiles to the face, while Samus is holding her mouth open. But then she just explodes anticlimactically and doesn't leave all of that crap behind. The powerbomb approach is much more cinematic and satisfying. And so we get to see what's behind her. It's a little baby. It's a little, harmless baby that has imprinted upon Samus as her mother. The baby Metroid is actually crucial for getting out of here. Because these crystals, they are apparently a Metroid's natural food. And the baby Metroid will just clean them up. Vacuum them up like a Hoover. This is it. Samus has completed her mission to the extent that she is willing to complete it. As you may expect, there is nothing you can do to harm the baby. It just floats around and gets rid of all of these obstacles for you. Which is good, because otherwise we wouldn't have a way out. I feel like it was implied somewhere that those crystals are actually the crystallized forms of X-parasites, which the Metroids were created to be the natural predator of on SR388. But here we are, just taking a nice stroll through the nighttime of SR388 back to our ship. Well done, Samus. Mission complete. Let's get the hell off this planet. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was another Metroid 2 remake. Quite the ironic name considering it survived to become the only Metroid 2 remake. So I made a couple of allusions to Dr. M64. He was not the sole person who worked on this project, as you can see. There were plenty of others who were undoubtedly extremely valuable in making sure this all came together in a playable game. I mean, think about the fate of most fan games, and how amateurish their efforts turn out, or how a lot of them don't even come close to living up to the legacy of the game that it's a fan of. When you think about it like that, this game is, quite frankly, a masterpiece. And it's incredible that it all came together, even if it took so long. And that it pays its proper respects while carving out its own place so that it seems like it could really fit with the rest of the Metroid canon with not a problem, while throwing in bits and pieces from every other Metroid just to ensure that it is truly considered a Metroid game. And of course, in memory of Satoru Iwata. So we took a fair amount of time to clear the game, but 100% is worth it. And so we get the middle ending image. Samus removes her helmet and examines the baby that came with her. There's one more image that expands on this story, but we'll see what that is later.
The last Metroid is in captivity. The galaxy is at peace.
Welp, we all know where this is headed. Thank you for watching, everyone.